Okay guys, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be reseating the front bearing that's in this OS Max XZ.25. It was one of my older motors that I really love this motor. It did really well for me. I think back in the early 2010, 2012, something like that. Well, they discontinued this motor in 2014. It didn't have a long run. I think it only had about a 6 or 7 year run. I don't think it's like rare, but they're a little harder to find. Certainly harder to find parts for them now. I do have a front bearing ordered for it because I went through this engine and I tore it down, cleaned it all up, and put new bearings in it, but I really didn't put new bearings in it the right way. What I should have done is wait until I got one of the bearing removal and replacement tools and did it, but I did it the old-fashioned way where you put the engine in an old toaster oven or something like that, heat it up, let it expand, put the bearings in that way. But when I tried to run this engine and test it out when I finished it all, it did not run okay, and that's because I think I need to redo the O-rings in the carburetor. So the front bearing, it had a little leakage coming out of the front, and what that will do, you'll be sucking in air, because essentially these little things are air and fuel pump. So I could have been sucking too much air, which was not allowing me to get my tune correct, and I got a rebuild kit for that, so I'm going to do that as well. I do have Hudy toolkit to replace and remove old bearings. This is the easy way to do it and a smarter way to do it. Tool's pretty expensive for what it is. If you do nitro engines, if you work with them, it's definitely worth it. So I'm going to try to get that front bearing reseated and test it out. If it doesn't get reseated like I want it, I've got another front bearing ordered to just replace this one. So I got this. I'm going to put this in my vintage Mugen MBX 5T. It was a full rebuild, full restoration. That's what I used to run this in, so I'm pretty excited to get this in there with the OS speed pipe that I used to run in there. Let's get doing this. Again, like I said, I have this Hudy bearing puller and presser tool to use with this, one of my favorite older engines, the OS Max .25 XZ. It was specifically made for truggies. This should be fun. Let's get this clutch out of here. This was a older style clutch, Mugen clutch. It's a 3-shoe with a 13-tooth pinion gear. Ooh, I forgot I had a bunch of shims in there. Don't want to lose those. Oh yeah, those little shims are important. And it did slip a little bit there, and I have these little nylon insets that will protect the flywheel. And I had this little puller that I use just to pull off flywheels. Pretty loose, it was pretty easy. So flywheel comes off nice and easy with that. Flywheel, my collet. And what I like to do, shims and stuff, is I like to set these shims out in the order that I took it off, because you can get them mixed up. If you have a good, a good setup, something that works for the engine, you want to keep it right in place. So when you set it up again, it'll be right there and real quick to do. Some leakage that was coming right up under here. Engine, I just let it sit for a few days, so it was coming right out from under that bearing, which leads me to believe I don't have a good seal. That's why I want to reseat it. Might just not be a good bearing, and that's why I ordered another one. I think this one was kind of off-brand. See if I can get this one to reseat in there. Always make sure that your piston is in the utmost position that you can get it in. These skirts allow for the piston clearance, but man, this thing ran so good. And the big draw to this engine was you could get a lot of fuel mileage in races. I definitely can attest to that. I would get some good fuel mileage runs out of this. All right, the button, shim are intact. See, I'd already taken this one apart and cleaned it real well. This thing still has decent pinch. I just want to get it back going because I just used to love this engine so much. Oh, no. I want to show you something with this engine. It's already been cleaned out. I really cleaned this engine up good. I took a lot of time. Piston and sleeve, it doesn't have great pinch, but I can get it all the way up to about there. So that's not great, but it's not terrible. It's still got some life on the engine. Engine's really clean inside. Piston looks really good. I could use another piston rod. The last time I checked, does appear to be worn out. There should really be no movement. There's the slightest bit of movement. It's a little worn out. So like I said, it's hard to find the parts for these, so I have to make do with what I have. I'm not going to run it that much. I don't plan on taking it to the track or run it really hard. I just want to have it for my collection. This truck was my first truggy that I ever had, that I ever really raced, and it is Mugen as a brand has always been solid, even solid back then. So it was a really good truck, still is. I had a really great time on the full rebuild. I've got that episode. It's back a few if you want to go and check that out. Okay, this is a removal and press tool, the Hudy. What I'm going to do, I really just want to do the front bearing, so I'm going to see if I can only do that one. I'm going to install this whole way through, put the bearing catcher. I'm going to screw this, and I'm going to try to screw this down. Wow, it's the easiest way I've ever taken out a bearing. Now it's a different process to reseat that. Okay, so what I'm basically gonna do is reverse this, put the bearing in here, reverse this little cup, catches in. Yep, felt it bottom out right there. I almost really think that I might be using the bearing that I've just ordered from A-Main Hobbies to come in to replace this bearing, but I'll give reseating this bearing the right way. I'll give it a shot. I've already did a really thorough check over this engine. I previously rebuilt it, so right now that's good. What I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the O-rings in here and probably put some new O-rings in this high-speed needle, because I can feel it just too easy. It just feels too loose. And I tried to do this before. I got some silicone O-rings. I don't think it worked that well, so I'm going to try it again. Okay, I have this carburetor here that I'm going to put in some new O-rings, a little rebuild kit here. I'm not going to redo the whole thing because I've already redone some of it. I always have these extra little handy, small, clear little storage bins. You can buy them on Amazon. You can get all different sizes. This one, this silicone one on the throat, it was a little too small. I'm going to get rid of that one. I do like the silicone washers better. I'm sorry, the silicone O-rings better. I'm going to take the high-speed adjustment valve out. This O-ring in here was really the one that I had concerns about, because when this engine heats up, it really starts to get too easy to screw down in there and adjust. So this one's still the old one, that little guy right there. They give me these little tools, which I was not sure about at first, but put this on top of the valve and you're supposed to just be able to spread the O-ring right down over it, which makes things much more easy. Boom. Makes a big difference. Gotta be honest, that doesn't feel that much tighter. These are something I definitely did not have the last time. Check out this low speed needle. All these have different sizes to put this little thing down over it. A little after run oil. Wow, makes it so much more easier to do it with these. At first when I ordered the kit, I wondered what these little tools were. I got the kit and I realized quickly what they were and how great they could be. And they surely are. Because if you've ever rebuilt a carburetor without one of those and doing that, it's very hard to stretch those things over the rough spots, valves there. I think that's good. I'm going to leave those. I rebuilt the part that I really wanted to rebuild was the high-speed needle, the throat gasket fixed, and while I was at it, I went ahead and did the low-speed needle. I don't think I'm going to have to go through and oil every single part up. Just about perfection. Always put these back together in a crisscross pattern, but I'm sure you guys already knew that. I really put anything together in a crisscross pattern whenever I take something apart, no matter if it really needs to be sealed or not. It's a habit. I've always done it. You learn it doing it on regular full-size vehicles, and it translates over into anything, especially these little engines. Get a nice good seal. Now don't overdo it on this back plate. Any advice you could ever need on any of these little engines, Adam Drake, #1 guy, in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion. He's held in high regard in this business. He really started out running 10th scale engines. He's got some of the best advice of anybody. Even the top pros, they follow him in regards to building and maintaining engines. A lot of my knowledge came right from him. He's got great videos on what to do. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. I don't really crank on this either. And there we have it. Hopefully this solves my issue. I definitely think air was causing this not to tune correctly, and this is a super good engine just to let it go to waste. So, all right, next one coming up, we're gonna be putting that and that. Okay, I'm just gonna put some fuel tubing on it, in the body, and get this battery hooked up, go outside, see what happens. Now that I've rechecked the piston and sleeve pinch, I don't have a lot of high hopes for it because I think it might be just a little too worn out, not quite enough pinch. That's probably the main reason of my not being able to tune correctly to get this engine to run right. So we'll see though.